In today's video, I'm talking about the difference between objections and barriers and why it's important for you to know what your potential clients' objections might be to working with you and what the potential barriers are to working with you and how you can use these objections and barriers in your content and in your copy. So, first of all, it's very unlikely that you are going to talk to a potential client or hear from a potential client who has absolutely zero objections, zero hesitations to working with you. Usually there's something that somebody needs to kind of get off their chest or speak to you about in order to then kind of part with their money. Often it's something along the lines of, I've tried this before and it didn't work for me, or how will I know this is right for my business? So these are objections that people might have or hesitations they might have, but they are not a no. They are not a no, I can't work with you. It's a yes, but this is a problem that I may foresee having. So it's really important to address objections in your content marketing, on your socials and your blogs, definitely on your website. Psychologically, we often find that people, even if they see that you know what their hesitations might be and have addressed it in your copy, that's enough for them. They don't necessarily need to know that you are going to make sure that never happens or really answer it thoroughly. They just need to know that you understand this is something that might be in their head. So objections really, really important for you to address, talk about, find out about. The other part is barriers. Now, people often mistake objections and barriers. In my target audience questionnaire, which I always send to potential clients, which is where I ask them questions about their clients, I say, what are your clients' objections to working with you? And what are the barriers to working with you? And there's a difference there. Barriers are much harder to overcome. And it's really important we know what the barriers are because we want to address those potentially before people get on calls with us. So barriers are things like location. So if you run in-person events, workshops, sessions, or even if you run virtual ones and time zones are going to be a problem. If that's something, it's not necessarily that it's never going to be overcome, but it's so difficult that it's not potentially worth your time talking to people that are located in a time zone or in a distance too far away to actually work with you. So time zones are a big one in terms of objections. Another one is availability. So it can be, availability can often be an objection rather than a barrier. But if somebody is literally like, I'm away for a month, I won't be able to do anything. Okay, let's park it and come back at a later date when you can. Demographics can be a barrier. So if you run programs for, menopausal women, that's obviously going to rule out a big demographic. So what we do with barriers is we talk about in our messaging, in our brand messaging, in our content, we kind of filter people out by talking about who we do work with and who our target audience are and what our niche is, so that we're kind of filtering out those people for whom the barriers are going to be way too big to get over before they come to the point of actually contacting us or getting on a call with us. So barriers often are too big to overcome. Let's talk about who we do work with, so the people for whom the barrier is too big won't actually get to the point where we're on calls and we're wasting everybody's time. Objections are a good thing. Objections are not a no, objections are a yes, but, and it's really, really important that you are talking through your objections in your content and in your copy. So the other thing I did want to talk about are time and money. So time and money can fall into both categories. All the time you'll hear the objection, I don't have enough time, or I'm not sure if I can afford it. Time and money are always big ones. So sometimes, let's talk about time first. Sometimes time is a barrier. As I've talked about, it could be literally that I am going away or I'm doing this for 6 months. It's going to take up all my time. That's a barrier. Sometimes it's an objection and it's just that they're not prioritizing the time that it's going to take for you to do things over other things. And in that case, you just really need to talk through the value of what it is you're offering and let them decide whether they want to shift around their priorities and from a time point of view. When it comes to money, again, that can either be a barrier in that they will never be able to afford you. They don't want to pay that money. It's not going to happen. In which case, it's important to have your prices on your website so you can filter people out before they get to the point where they're on calls with you. but it could also be an objection. So it's important to have those conversations with people, talking about the value of what it is you do, so you can then, or they can then decide whether the time and money, objections or barriers are either or. So time and money are a big one. But what I want you to do today is think about, what are the barriers to people working with you? What people could you just not work? It just wouldn't work if you guys, if you offered your services to these people. And think about whether you're addressing those in your messaging enough and filtering out those people, or are you finding yourself on call with people that just aren't right for you ever, or too often you're on calls or in DMing people that it's just not going to work. It's not a right fit. So making sure you're talking about who you do work with in your messaging, in your brand. And then think about the objections. So, okay, we've got over the barriers, we've got to the people who do want to work with us. So what are the objections these people might have? Ask them what their objections are when you talk to them, address them in your copy, and then you can kind of help them overcome that yes, but stage, so they feel comfortable enough to be working with you.